Reverend Cannabis has been extracting medicine from cannabis for 15 years. He has worked with every modern solvent and solventless extraction process, including dry extraction, ethanol, and ISO alcohol, water extraction, butane, and CO2. His business, Conscious Extracts, produces exceptional extracts sold in dispensaries throughout Washington. He also consults for legal cannabis processors and pharmaceutical companies. He worked to develop and implement the medical marijuana hashish rating system for consumers and patients. Reverend Cannabis was formerly Dean of the Cannabis College and has worked extensively on cannabis reform with the Committee for Cannabis Standards and Ethics, the Cannabis Defense Coalition, and the Patient Arrest Protection Group. He is now Vice President of Extraction at Think Pure. Is that correct?
Research and Development.
There you go.
Think Pure.
Right on. So welcome, Reverend Cannabis.
Hey, thank you all for coming out for this rosintech class. So are you going to do the slides or somebody?
I'm headed that way now.
Perfect, because it's like, I can't do it from here.
Totally.
Yeah, thanks for coming out. So rosin, you know, it's this new craze that everybody's getting into. It's a wonderful extraction method. So let's get the next slide up here. So what is rosin? So rosin is a cannabis extract obtained from heat and pressure. So it's basically, you know, you just have heat, pressure, a parchment paper, and cannabis inside the parchment paper. And you press it, and out comes a solventless dab of hash oil. So its advantages, it's inexpensive to produce. You don't need anything more than a hair straightener, hashish or cannabis, and a box of parchment paper. And you can have some dabs right then. Easy to extract in small quantities. It's really suited for the home user of cannabis, something that you can make for yourself. And with 5052 coming around and us not being able to have butane from collectives and farmers markets, it's really something that the patients need. You know, they need to be able to have that high potency extract. And so this enables them to do it at home. It's a fast extraction method. It can take you a couple minutes to go from a bud to a dab. You know, you're smoking your dab in a couple minutes, as long as you've got all your equipment, which isn't very much altogether. There's no purging time needed. It doesn't have to go into a vacuum oven to remove anything. Although some people are doing fresh frozen nowadays, fresh frozen bubble hash that has water in it. And so they're putting their rosin into the vacuum oven to remove that water so that it's, you know, has a little bit more shelf stability. It's a little bit safer for the consumer because fresh frozen and water on a hot nail, you know, oil and water just spatters, you know, so you'll burn your eye or something possibly. And then again, no solvents are used in the process. So next slide here. So this right here is actually the first hash rosin that was ever posted online. So this was 2006. I remember it being a different date than 2006, but every bit of my search that I've done leads me to believe that maybe I was wrong. So 2006, Compassion in Canada posted on IC Mag, and he came up with the stainless steel bowl technique. So you basically take a stainless steel bowl, you put it over a boiling pot of water, and it heats it up. Then you take your stainless steel bowl out while it's warm, and you roll hashish around in the bowl. And then you would go back and scrape up the rosin. And so he was the first person to coin it, rosin, to my knowledge, first record of it that anybody has found. So previous to Compassion doing this, there's been all kinds of different times in history when rosin has been made. So the very first was Chris Bennett. He actually was talking about this on Hash Church either last week or the week before, and he says that cultures would take cannabis and place it into a canvas bag and hold that over a fire until it was warm, and then they would twist the bag, and out of the bag would secrete rosin, and so they'd scrape that off. And that was the very first technique that anybody has historically done that there's a record of. And so Chris Bennett, he's a cannabis historian, religious, recreational, and medical. He's really really into all cannabis. Yeah, so that's the first rosin made hundreds of years ago. After that, there's been a lot of pressing of hashish that happened in Morocco, in the 60s and 70s. And when they pressed the hashish, there would be an oil that would squirt out. And so they'd just be pressing and pressing and pressing, and at the end of the day, they'd scrape that off, and it was this red oil. And so travelers that went to Morocco and were buying, quantities of hashish from these people that were pressing up all the hashish would get that as kind of their bonus that they were getting. They would get the red oil, and it was very, very sought after. Still wasn't being called rosin at that point. Nobody really had any ideas to make that a production method, but it was just kind of this, extra thing that people would get. So then, fast forward to 2015, and Soil Grown, it goes by Soil Grown on Instagram. He was squishing out his hash one day, and people use a parchment paper and a hair straightener to press out their saltless bubble hash before they smoke it. So he went a little hot with his hair straightener. He had it turned up a little too hot, and what he noticed was that the hash in the center was kind of dry and crumbly, and out around the edges it was all the oil. And so he's like, oh, this is kind of cool. And he ran out of his full melt hash after that, and he had just kind of half melt the stuff that was left over. And he started squishing that and getting dabs. And he says he ran out of all of his half melt, and he went to he grabbed a bud and squished it. He's like, I don't know why I did it, but it was like I figured maybe something would happen. I might get a little dab. And he squished it and posted the picture online, and the world has changed ever since then. He was doing this hash rosin thing, and he was getting, maybe like a 5-star out of 6 quality from 3-star bubble that he was pressing, but it wasn't quite hitting that 6-star level. And so then I actually saw this method back at the end of February. The very next day that I could get to a hair straightener, I went and pressed out quite a few buds figuring this out. And at the end of that week, I went down to Oakland to go see a CO2 extraction machine down there, and visited with my friend Space, Milton Bubbly on Instagram. And he's been processing hash for a long time. I've been processing with him since probably 2000 on the bubble hash technique. And we were sitting around, and I said, hey, have you seen this rosin technique? He said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Squishing a bud and getting a dab. And I said to him, well, do you have a hair straightener? Let's do it. And he said, no hair straightener. But he said, I've got a t-shirt press. And so I had never used a t-shirt press, never thought about using a t-shirt press, just had this hair straightener that I was using for all of it. And I said, well, let's try it out. Let's see what happens. And he didn't have any bud. He just had hash, because he's a hash maker, and had a bag full of low-grade hash, 3-star. And so we just started throwing hash on there, and we were getting 3-star to go into about a 5-star, and it was really nice. But we both were talking. We're like, hey, we need a filter. We need something to hold the contaminant back when we press this, on the t-shirt press in between the parchment. And so he actually said, hey, I've got a 25 micron filter that came with my bubble bags, the pressing screen. And I said, well, let's do it. So we loaded up like about ½ ounce of hash into the pressing screen and threw it on the t-shirt press and squished out a nice amount of 6-star plus quality. It was just the same as any other hash oils that are out there. Milk's completely no residue or very little residue left on the nail. And so that's kind of how the 25 micron pressing screen technique was born. And I posted that online, and pretty much every hash maker that I follow, and most of the ones that follow me on Instagram, have tried this out, and now there's rosin everywhere. People are just utilizing this 25 micron screen method and just going for it. Thanks, Bart. You're right on it. Okay, so Home production, like I said, it's basically, you've got your flat iron. I like one with an adjustable temperature. My flat iron actually has a little digital readout on it, and it will tell me, I guess I don't have any power here. It'll tell me, what the temperature is, and I press everything at 230 degrees. That's really my favorite temperature. Lowest setting on this straightener. I might go lower if I had more pressure, but just my own body weight standing on the straightener is all the pressure that I'm giving it usually. I use a clamp at work when I'm making rosin. They've got these kind of hand clamps that you can use and get 300 pounds of pressure. So just do that with a hair straightener and clamp it down. So flat iron, parchment paper, hashish or flowers, a tool for collection. If it gets really sappy, sometimes it's hard to collect up. But you don't even necessarily need the tool for collection. You can fold the parchment onto itself and gently heat it just a little bit to kind of get it to come together, and fold it over again until you've collected it all up. And then the 25 micron screen is the other thing. It's optional for flowers. You don't have to use it for flowers. And you don't have to use it for hashish, but you're definitely going to up the quality of anything that you have if you've got that filter there. All right, so let's see here. So flower rosin, like I said, I press for 230 degrees Fahrenheit. I like to do 5-second presses and do several 5-second presses. I usually just press it until I don't see any more coming out of it, because I'm trying to get every last bit that I can out of it. Collect the rosin and dab it. It's pretty simple. It's not rocket science. So right here, this is a dab of some dog shit. Is the strain. It's a really nice sativa, very good for asthma. And so that's flower rosin right there. Just a little tiny dab. I pressed about half a gram and got a couple dabs about that size. So it's on the end of the dabber. And then the next one, this is some Schramm that I pressed. And you can see there's a couple little flecks of contaminant in there. And that's indicative of the flower resin or flower rosin. You usually have little bits and pieces. Some people will make a whole bunch of flower rosin and then put it into the 25 micron screen to clean that out a little bit, to remove those extra little bits of contaminant. But me personally, I don't mind it that much. And the terpene content of that right there is just so high that I wouldn't want to heat it again to remove that little bit of contaminant that's in there. So then, next slide here is hash rosin. So hash rosin, it's basically the same thing, except for you use a 25 micron screen. So I take the hash up top there, just regular hash. I give it a quick press, which is the middle image there. So it's all kind of pressed together like I would do with bubble hash before I would smoke it. And then I put it into the 25 micron pressing screen and collect up and press out the rosin. So the top, middle, and bottom, precursor pressed, and then hashish. And so I have found that at 230 degrees, I really like 15 seconds at least. But at 10 seconds, you're starting to get oil to come out. And that's probably going to be the terpiest fraction of the oil. So it really depends on it depends on if you're really, really trying to get every last bit out of there, or if you're really, really trying to go for the highest quality product that you can. I always go for get every last bit out of there. Because I really love rosin. The secondary presses really aren't that much lower in quality. They are a bit. You can definitely see there's a little bit more cloudiness on the second presses, but personally, that's not a big issue for me. So yeah, 10 to 30 seconds is what I do, and then usually 3 presses on that. When I'm using the clamp at work, I don't have to do more than 2 presses, and it's 15 seconds because I've got all that pressure on the clamp. you know, so it's a lot easier. And then, so this is some hash rosin that I made there. I can't remember exactly which one this one is. A little more hashish rosin there. Then this next slide here, this is from the Milts in Colorado, Trichome Heavy Extractions. This is some rosin that they entered in the High Times Cannabis Cup, which was kind of the first event when a bunch of rosin was entered. And I believe, now there's contention about it, and I still haven't gotten the for sure story, but I believe it won second place in Denver at the High Times Colorado Cup. They entered a whole bunch of different things, and the name of what it was that was announced was rosin. But when I talked with one of the judges, she confirmed with me that rosin did not place in the top three. So who knows? They definitely gave the award for rosin, but that's High Times, so you never know. Then the next one here, this is Tony Vazura pressed this up, and I'm not exactly sure what it is, but this was pressed on Teflon. So he really likes the Teflon sheet for pressing. I prefer parchment. Actually, the bleached parchment is kind of my favorite because it's a little bit thicker. I also use this stuff, the non-bleached kind, you know, but it's a lot thinner, and I feel like when it's a sappier rosin, I feel like I'm maybe pulling some of that paper and silicone off because it's not as thick as this parchment, where I don't feel like I'm damaging the surface as much. On this one I definitely do. So his whole thing is he likes to press on this PTFE sheet because it's just solid. There's no fiber in there that's going to be breaking down. The one thing is you want to make sure that you keep the temperature level because Teflon, if you heat it up too high, it's very dangerous for you to inhale the fumes. There's this polymer fume flu, and there's all kinds of bad things that you can get from pressing too high, especially for the maker. And I'm sure when you're smoking, some of it's got to make it into the rosin as well, but for the maker, when you're pressing it, you just got those fumes coming right up at you. You know, you got to be careful. But he presses same temperatures as I do, 225, 230 on his iron. So he's well below any, you know, dangerous levels where he's pressing. And this one right here is from Moxie. It's their SFOG or SFB-OG rosin made from bubble hash. And they entered that one as well into the High Times Cannabis Cup in Denver. These guys are out of California. So they do a lot of BHO extraction and solventless extraction as well, and now they're getting into the rosin and distilled cannabinoids as well. So this slide here is some rosin butt. So we made blueberry into rosin. And after sitting for about a week in the parchment, that's what happened. It turned into this buttered consistency. It was actually, you know, after the first couple days, I noticed it was starting to happen, and it just nucleated, and the whole slab buttered up. So I kind of pressed it all together, got it into a nice consistency, and it's really nice. Had a really blueberry smell to it, and you know, just like BHO butter, same sort of consistencies. You know, it's really interesting. You know, rosin, you're able to get very similar consistencies to what you'd be able to get with BHO if it's made proper. You know, and if it's not proper, it looks like not proper BHO, honestly. You know. So this right here is some Girl Scout cookies. That's one of the favorite ones that I've made so far. It was a nice pull and snap, on the more stable side of a pull and snap, but just loud as all could be with cookies flavor. You know, just hit you in the nose when you open the parchment. It's really nice. That's one thing about rosin that BHO usually doesn't have. A lot of BHO has good nose nowadays if the extractor's really good at purging, but rosin just every time you smell it, it's got that really good nose because there's more terps.
In BHO, sometimes you can see the residual left, like the bubbles inside. Is that just air inside there?
Yeah, in there it's just the air. You know, I could get it to be completely free of bubbles, but I'd have to heat up enough to have it free of bubbles. So it's kind of from, I collect it all up, I put it into a patty, and then I give it just the lightest, quickest heat to get that all to be in one stable patty. So it's all the little air bubbles locked in there. This one right here is the Washington Bud Company, Rosin. So at the end of the slideshow here, I'll have some analytical stuff that hopefully we'll be able to see up here, because it does go a little bit down towards the bottom. But yeah, this is made from bubble hash. So medium-sized production. So this right here on the right, this is that day when that's actually Milton Bubbly's face right there, folding up for the very first press with the pressing screen on the t-shirt press. So that was us right there in the moment, figuring it all out. Here's the old school, I mean, it's a really, really old t-shirt press on the right. And so I think it's 4 days earlier, and I hadn't seen this post yet, but Soil Grown, at the time when we were doing the t-shirt press, I hadn't seen it, but Soil Grown posted this right here. He said, I'm going to be working on some modifications on this ancient t-shirt press. And you know, it's like, bam, right at the same time, we were both like, let's do t-shirt press. And as soon as we both posted it out there, just everybody's getting t-shirt presses all over the net, you know. And yeah, so this is kind of the medium way that you can do it, where you've only got a 1-inch or 2-inch heating surface here. You've got quite a lot there. You can press a lot more, a lot quicker. I've heard of people, you know, pressing half ounce or more flowers easily in one press on the t-shirt press, where you're, you know, a gram or 2 here at the most. Well, actually, maybe a gram with this one here, you know. So then Foundation Extracts really has kind of taken it to the next level. So they've got this APD press, and it's a 2-ton press. And they take a plate that they have warming in a toaster oven or some sort of oven off to the side. I don't know exactly that part of the technique, but they've got warm plates, and they set them up in there, and they've got a tea bag that is a 90 micron tea bag, kind of disposable tea bag, that they put flour in or hash in, and then they put it in here and 2-ton press it. And it's literally 3 seconds, and they're doing it at low temperatures. I've heard 180. You know, they play with the temperatures and do different temperature ranges, but you can get, with the pressure, a lot more to come out a lot faster. So that's Foundation Extracts. It's some, you know, really nice rosin. It looks a little dark on this screen here, but it's really nice and blonde, just beautiful, beautiful rosin. So this right here, this is some interesting stuff. Breeder Steve has been posting a lot of different things. The next 3 slides are pictures that he's posted on his Instagram. Basically, this is just an oil press, and you just toss in the top. You toss your oil out the side on the left. Your waste comes out, and in this little holder pot there in the center, you get oil. So it's for pressing, you know, making your own seed oils and things like that. Whatever kind of oil that you have, toss hemp nuts in there and make your own hemp oil. So that's kind of an idea. I played around with using some oil presses and had some success, except for I had to heat it a little bit more than I wanted to, so the oil came out a little bit dark. But I do see a lot of potential for the future if the right setup can be put together. I don't think that this one's the right setup. Here's another one, another similar thing. Breeder Steve's been posted on there. And then the next slide is a little bit more large scale. So this is what they use for commercial extraction, and it's basically just a screw that's pushing down on whatever your material is, and eventually that spits out the one end, and the oil all comes down this trough. And so I believe that really for high efficiency, large scale production, we're going to look right over into the oil extraction realm for food oils. You know, how are you getting olive oil and grapeseed oil and all of these different oils to come out of plants? Because there are oils that are contained at 25 to 30% in some seeds. That's all the oil that's in there, and we're hitting 25% on extractions with butane. A lot of times, doing hot extractions with butane, I've heard of people getting 20% with rosin. And so I think that that's something that's really for the future. We're going to see more of the agricultural equipment that will be adapted to our product. So maybe it's not going to be the exact same, because once our product comes out, it's going to be a lot harder, right, than an olive oil, right? So we're going to have some sort of method to be able to heat it enough to be able to get it to go through, but then be collecting in a cold collection. So that's really kind of the future for large-scale production. Then we have the certificate of analysis. So this was the very first test that I had seen done on the precursor, the rosin, and then the waste product. So right here we've got the precursor. It was back in on the 10th of March that we tested this. And so it came out at, let's see here, we'll just go by this THC total here, 65.47% on the THC. And then on the next slide, it went up to 78.37%. So it's quite a jump in potency. And also on the left side, you can see the terpene analysis, and it gained 1 milligram per gram of extract from the precursor to the rosin. So if we can actually go back one slide. There you go. Oh, it's a difficult one. So, no, that's perfect. That's perfect. So if you look up here, we've got 0.65 on the Delta 9 THC, right? These 64.99% of THC acid, but only 0.65% on the THC itself that is decarb, right? And so then we go to the next slide, and we have 3.4% activated. So there is some activation that's happening, but it's very negligible. I mean, there's 74.77%, 10% greater THC acid in the rosin as there was in the precursor material. So there is some conversion that's happening, but people saying, those rosin chips are perfectly useful, go ahead and just eat them because they're fully decarb. That's not necessarily the case. So let's go to the last slide here, and we actually have what happens to it. So 4.25% Delta 9 THC. So only 4.2% is activated of what this rosin chip is. And we've got about, it says 42% THC left. So there's quite a bit of THC. Now we got about 55% yield of rosin from this material already. So they're very useful still. The rosin chips, I mean, they're really, really good for making edibles. You put them down into an oil and actually do the decarb on it. You can have some really potent medicine, won't have the waste, right? Because there's valuable cannabinoids still locked in there. But if you look on the left side there, you can notice a whole bunch of zeros with very, very little carophyllene, which is one of the terpenes that hangs around the longest. It's actually one of the terpenes that a lot of terpenes, some terpenes will break down into carophyllene. It's the breakdown fat. And so that's basically, pressed most of it out. There's a little bit of myrcene, a bit more limonene, and then humulene and carophyllene. So there's still some terpenes, but it's mostly liquefied and brought out into the extraction. Yeah, so that's what I've got. If you guys have some questions, I'd love to answer anything that you have, and then I can set up for doing a little bit of rosin pressing demonstration.
Just a quick question. On the kind of segueing off that decarboxylation, from my own limited knowledge, I thought it was around 210, 220, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And then, but like when we used to bake in the oven, it was for like 10, 15, 20 minutes or something like that. Are you, with this temperature, is that, my question was, are you decarbing that, I guess, activating some of that already? I mean, obviously.
Well, I mean, you saw the numbers there. It's very, very little of it is actually decarb, right? So you're asking if while I'm pressing it and making it into rosin, if that decarb's happening?
Yeah.
Not in my process. Now, if you're doing higher temperatures, I hear people going all the way up to 400. That's way too hot to be pressing rosin. You're going to get quick, and you're going to get higher yield, possibly, but some of your terpenes are going to be lost as well. And you will have conversion. So, I mean, I guess what's your end goal? If you're going to eat it, that would be plenty fine, because you're not really worried about vaporizing all of those nice terpenes, because you want something decarb. But yeah, if it's done right, you have very little decarb that's happening. I've seen 25% decarb from people that are posting their precursor and their rosin online. But that's, I've always been in every process that I've ever done, it's always keep the temperature low, and then you'll retain the terpenes.
Sure. So then, I'm sorry to keep going.
Sure.
So then, if you're looking at it to make it, say you're trying to replace like an RSO or a FICO or something for someone, a patient to use it edibly, you may want to raise that temperature then.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be using it edibly, it might not be the very, very best technique for trying to make edibles, right? Because there's other methods. Like I would rather do an extraction with like coconut oil or something like that and try and get all of it out of the plant material. Because like that slide showed, you're leaving almost 40% THC in this material. So it's not the very best for full extraction, but it extracts a really, really nice dab. Something that you're able to vaporize. And so, full of terpenes that do help modulate the cannabis. But when you're cooking something, you're cooking off most of those terpenes anyways. When you decarb something, so it's kind of like they're different worlds of use. Yeah. All right. Shingo.
So in trying to scale up rosin production, using the air striker is awesome for like personal and home use. When people step up to the shirt press, you're pressing a lot more, and you end up with just a ton of splatter on the parchment, right? What we found is that the time to collect it is where all your profit goes away, right? And so, what have you heard from talking about this more people about the gathering of it on the sheet? Because, when you're just using an AirPress, it's and you're done, right? But if you're doing several grams at a time, and you're doing that all day, and then you've got a pile of these sheets, the getting it off is very laborious. So, what techniques have you heard of?
Well, okay, so what I do personally is I like to use a hot plate and a cool piece of glass. So those are the two things. So depending on your consistency of it, if you've got a sack, you want to be on the cool glass, so you're collecting that, or like a cool sheet of marble, something that's going to stay cool. If you have more of a shatter, you're going to want to have it on that warming hot plate, so that you can have it a little bit warm. You can warm it for a second, try and scrape it up, and then once it starts being really oily while you're scraping it, pull it off. It's still warm, go for a few seconds, kind of do this back and forth sort of a thing. So it's very tedious, and there's not really a good way for it.
And what tool are you using?
So I like to personally fold over the parchment to get a nice chunk of it, and then I use gloves so that I can grab that chunk of rosin and then I just go over it with the rosin, picking it up with the rosin, and then when I pull it off, it all comes off my gloves except for a tiny little bit. Where like if I use my fingers, it's all over. If I use a tool, then you have to like get it off of the tool, and there's all these extra steps. So for the quickest, I like to use the rosin itself as the collecting tool. There's not really a great way to collect up little amounts, right? So what I try to do, I press hashish. That's really what my favorite thing to do is press hashish. Then you have a nice pool of it that's going to come out the sides. It's very easy to collect up. If you take your flowers and trim and things like that and compress them a bit. So there's this guy, Johnny B on Hash Church. He's been using a garlic press. I haven't tried this method, but I use a kind of similar technique. And he presses all of his flowers and trim and all that into a puck. And then he pops a whole bunch of pucks out onto the t-shirt press and presses that. And so because they're so dense, there's more cannabinoids in in that area, right? So as you press it, what's coming out of it is going to be a larger pool that's actually easier to collect.
There's probably more internal density to cause the oil to come out the sides too, instead of, which is why you were saying earlier, you roll up the bud with your hands.
Yeah.
Putting in the garlic press, I'm doing that like on steroids. It's like hard.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I've got a whole bunch of followers or people that I follow actually on Instagram that are doing the same exact thing. That's their way to do it. A lot of people press and trim that way. Collection is the pain. A couple of my coworkers were trying to make rosin, and they got the pressing down. They figured that out pretty good. But when it came to collecting it, they would lose half of it all over the table, all over themselves and their hair. It's just like, it's a mess. I'd come back and I'd be like, what are you guys doing? It's everywhere. My hair straightener was just covered with rosin. So, we still use a hair straightener to make it perfectly pure. We don't have the t-shirt press. Really, I like this. I think this is a great method, but I think that it's still medium sized. I want something a little bit more powerful, at least like what Foundation Extracts is using, so that it's a much quicker press, and you can press a nice amount. I think you can press more in one press on this than Foundation's machine, but probably over time, just because it's so quick, if you have everything prepped, you can just, bam, it's like a couple seconds per hash,
Well, to extend that, that's my press, right? And so I've been using it a lot, and I agree with you. What you get is you can do more in volume as far as scaling up, but you lose a couple percentage points in return.
Yeah.
But the thing is that the cranking it down, squeezing the heck out of it, and cranking it up is so difficult on the body.
Yeah.
It is a very unpleasant experience.
Yeah.
And so even though the hair straightener is harder, it's right? But at least you're not doing all of this crazy stuff that really makes you sore when you go to bed.
Right. Yeah, I definitely get the rosin elbow all the time from pressing stuff up. It's not an easy task for sure, and that's why like the Foundation Extracts, those guys, they've got that, and they've got a foot pedal on it. So you just hit the foot pedal. It does all the pressing. So all you're doing is moving around parchment. It's really, really low impact for sure. So high impact from the 2-ton press, but low impact on the body. So any other questions you guys got?
Do you have a personal preference on screen? You noted the 25 micron and the 9 micron tea bag.
90 micron tea bag. Yeah. So I have not used a 90 micron before. I think that I personally like the smaller filter. I've used a 73 micron, and I found that there was a little bit of contaminant that came out, but really, honestly, it's not much. And so I think 25 microns is perfect. 25 is what you would want for clean like flour rosin with. Like if you pressed up a bunch of flour rosin on a t-shirt press and it's full of little speckles, you'd want to use a 25 micron screen to get all that out. But yeah, I haven't really found too much. I have not tried any of the disposable tea bags yet.
Have you tried coffee filters?
I have not. I've seen people using that. To me, I bet it would work fine. But to me, it's like you're putting little fibers in there, possibly. And so that's kind of what I was thinking about. Like, so there's actually some tea bags that they're made out of fiber rather than made out of plastic or whatever this is. Bubble Man, I spoke with him about, hey, what are the materials you use for the screen? And he named off the two different materials he uses in his bags. And I looked them up, and one had a 350 degree temperature, and this one was 450 degrees in its working zone, right? So I feel it's fairly safe. I was always kind of weirded out by, hey, we're pressing plastic, But Shango actually just brought me some of this, which I'm going to have to try out. I've never tried it before, but it's a 25 micron stainless steel. So that could be a really nice alternative. We'll have to see what happens here.
So if you want to get some of that, it took me a long time to find it. The trick is to search on eBay for marine supply, because it's actually made for boats.
Right.
So it's 25 micron marine supply, and then they add it.
Where would you suggest that? Not only that one, but the other screen that you showed me. Where would you suggest to get those?
Well, I don't know a local place. And so where I would suggest is freshheadies.com. That's Bubbleman's website. You can also get them from Aqualab. And I believe last time I checked, they're $12 for the pressing screen. So it's not that expensive. Yeah. And I cut them up. So this is just a little square. You can probably get 4 or 6 of them out of a pressing screen.
And you have to discard them, like they get kind of gross if you clean them.
Well, so this one it's actually a little bit nasty, but because I was pressing some gooey in it last night. But in between each time that I'm pressing a different strain, I clean them. So if I'm going to do 20 grams of one kind, I'll keep pressing in the same screen over and over. And that way, there's about 0.2 of a gram that you have that's lost in each time that you press it. But if you leave the screen dirty, you gain that 0.2 back. You don't lose it because it's just it's already saturated. But I use ethanol is what I use to clean it, and so I'm just basically making a strong tincture.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'll pick you up on you've seen that machine I use that gathers the dry ice extraction, right?
Yeah.
Dry cones. Now, do you press those tracks into like the top first, or would you go ahead and leave just a pile of it loose in the micron?
Yeah, so I would press. So I always press my hashish before I press through the screen. And that's just to kind of get it more dense and all together, and it just fits. The screen folds up really tight around what you're pressing, and I feel like the less surface area of screen that there is, the less waste you're going to have. So yeah, definitely. I like to press it up, and I would say, you can either do it with just pressure, or you can do it just like I'm going to do here. Sometimes it's not going to press up if it's lower quality. I actually made some bubble that won't press at all, and it won't make rosin. So I was like, well, what happened? It's tons of it. It's beautiful, blonde bubble. I'm like, yes, rosin material. There's nothing. So it has to really have some resin content to it. So it just depends on what the strain is. If it's all stock that you're getting, or for the most part, like if a bud it looks really frosty, but there's not much resin actually on the ends of the stalks, you're going to get this blonde material that just doesn't do anything. When I was in Spain, actually, there's this hash maker, Ramon, and he likes to do this thing called the static tech, where you take a piece of parchment and you take a CD case or DVD case and you put the parchment over it and you drag just one direction over the screen with a pile of resin there, and the contaminant will stick on one side, and just pure resin heads will stick on the other. So it's like a static separation technique. But all of the stuff that was contaminant, he saved all that up after he cleaned it and cleaned it and cleaned it and cleaned it. And it looked really beautiful. And he had this huge bag full of it. He's like, yeah, see what you can press out of this. I took a big old fat chunk of it and put it in and I couldn't get it to press at all. I'm like, I don't know if this is going to work. And I put it in the screen and nothing. Just, like one little tiny bit came out, not even enough to take it back up. So, yeah, really depends. Quality in, quality out. People are pressing 6-star and 5-star and stuff like that into rosin, but you can do it with 2 and 3-star for sure. If it's going to press up well together, you know that there's probably enough resin in there that it's going to want to do its thing. So, you got to press up some gooey rosin here. So I've just got some bubble hash. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to ask. But yeah, so I like to give just a quick little heat there. And then that kind of presses it all together.
That's at 230?
230, yep. This is probably a 4-star right here. Then you just plop it in the screen. I like to fold it over a couple times if I can, just to make sure that I have as little possibility of the contaminant sneaking around the corner. So then you fold it up into the pressing screen.
You would do the same with flour if it was just a nug, you just
Yeah.
stuff it in there and
Yeah, I'll do a flour here after this one. So I like to let it warm up for just a second on there so that the hash kind of melts a little bit. You don't have it all lumpy. And then I step on it. Just oozes out. You guys are welcome to come take a look if you want. There it is. Yeah. So quick as can be. Little bit of rosin. And then I usually do a quick little flash like this to get it to warm back up. Just a second after I press it. And then once you get a little chunk of it, yeah, this one's pretty stable.
It's not that hot in here, thankfully.
Huh?
It's not that hot in here, thankfully.
Yeah, right. Grab my dabber.
So on that long of a press, what are the terms like? I was like, we're usually pressing for 5 seconds. That was almost like 12.
That was more like 20 seconds, I think. And that one that I showed the test results of, that was 30 seconds. So yeah, I pressed it for 30 seconds with this exact hair straightener. So yeah,
Have you ever
super
tested
stable
it?
today. I haven't pressed this batch yet. So
Have you tested the temperature, like with a heat gun or anything, to confirm the?
yeah, it's about 250 at the highest is what I've seen when it's set to 230.
So this could be, so like on the hair straightener, does it matter if it's stainless steel plates or ceramic plates?
Well, some people will say yes, some people say no. I think you're pressing on the parchment, so it's not that big a deal either way, right? You know, so kind of made a mess of this here.
Some
Of course.
Some of like the shirt presses, like the stainless steel, and like ceramic or something.
And then as far as the parchment, is it a bad idea just to throw that in the freezer for a minute, or does that not free it up to come off easier?
Well, okay, so the freezer is a great idea if it's really sappy. This stuff right here is just like the ultra shatter.
Super stable.
Yeah, super stable. So it's kind of, you know, you wouldn't want to throw that in the freezer. It's just going to shatter way too much. The problem with putting anything into the freezer is when you cool it down and then bring it back out into this temperature, it's going to condense water out of the atmosphere. And so water will actually make its way into your hashish faster than it would just sitting out, right? So you could have issues with buttering and things like that that happen because of that. You know, the hashish could basically spoil. But yeah, if you're pretty quick about what you're doing, a lot of people like to throw it in the freezer and they smoke it. I do that when it's really, really cold too, or when it's really, really sappy as well, just to try and get it off. I've seen people use ice packs and have like an ice pack sitting out and then they'll set it on the ice pack and collect it up. But yeah, here, press up some flour up really quick as well.
If you had your product in like a sealed container or something like that, like a bag that could totally seal off from any moisture getting in, and you put it in the freezer, would that work? Or?
Yeah, as long as before you opened up the container, you let it warm back up to room temperature, because then that condensation effect won't happen.
Point on the outside is what it is, right? To see if there's water left on the outside of the container.
Yep. Just like if you buy full milk from the store, right, and it's kept in the fridge or freezer, you don't want to open it right away. You want to let it warm up to the point where that jar is warm. I mean, definitely. All right. So, brought a little schrum. So what I like to do is take the flour and break it off if it's thin, but not break it up too much, kind of leave it in chunks. And then I take the flour and just give it a little squeeze, which seems kind of weird to me, but it works. I just squeeze it in my fingers, roll it into a little ball. Kind of reminds me of high school. You know, some of the kids used to pack bowls and they'd be like, how much can we cram into the bowl? And they squeeze it into this tight ball, and the bowl would last forever, you know.
We didn't smoke in high school. What are you talking about?
I did. Hey, man. All right. So I did this one actually a little longer than I normally do. So, not much there. Yeah, let me give it a little rest. I usually wait until it starts sizzling. You can kind of hear it, the water content in there, sizzling, and all the constituents liquefying. You'll have different varying success. If the bud is really dry, I've had a hard time getting it to press out the rosin. I believe that the water content of it actually is a driving force behind how you get it out. show you guys a little dab there. This is my first squish and second squish. So, yeah, pass it around. Yeah, let everybody smell it. Yeah, Shron is definitely tasty. Yeah, so let's see, you guys got any other questions or?
Have you noticed, like, pressing with, like, a CBD strains, any different?
Sappy. So if it's CBD, it's sappy. Now, I actually pressed some stuff, switch photos right here. See, it was Kenny's ACDC, and it was like 20-some% CBD. And I pressed it, and couldn't get even one little spot to come out of it. And so it was the weirdest thing, but I've definitely had some stuff that's got more THC in it that was really, sappy. Yeah.
Is it like a temperature thing, do you think? With CBDs or?
So I believe that the sappy consistency is partially because of terpenes that are in there, but then it could also be more liquid lipids that are in there, and it could just be a different way. I noticed when I pressed lower quality hash a lot of times, like the lower the quality or the older the hash, the more I'll get like a sappy hash or a sappy oil from it. So it's kind of weird, I mean, some things are shatters, some things are butters, and it's just kind of like that's how it is really in making other hash as well, So I mean, sure, you can make everything into a shatter almost, or you can whip anything into a butter, but they kind of certain strains will auto butter, when you make because it just has so much terpene content. They draw water in. Terpenes are hydrophilic, and cannabinoids are hydrophobic, and so it's like this the synergy gets thrown a little bit off, and things just start nucleating and buttering. So, yeah.
Has anyone ever tried to make like a CBD rosin? Like, has there been percentages, like a test that's been done on? I'm just curious if you had a 75% THC rosin, if CBD could test that higher, if you could even.
Yeah. So I have not seen test results on the CBD rosin, so I couldn't say for sure, but I've seen some really nice bubble hash that was made from CBD material that was turned into rosin. It was, CBD material, every time I've worked with it for bubble, it's really hard to make it full milk. It just doesn't have the resin heads that make that full milk. So having a rosin from that, gives you the ability to have that oil without the solvent. So, yeah, I'm definitely interested. I get very little time to work with CBD material because it's so hard. I mean, the processors out there have just gobbled up every bit of CBD material that's on the market, So, yeah.
I bet it would be kind of like hard to spend the time to put it in the CBD when you're not getting the yields either.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, if I stored some CBD material, the first thing that I would want to do would be put it into my CO2 extractor, because that's just so much better of a method, I feel like, for extracting CBD. It's, people just scream for high CBD vape cartridges. So, yeah.
Any other questions? All right. Jeff?
Yeah. Thank you all for coming.
Right on. So, since you're the people who decide